When Princess Charlotte made a surprising decision that went against royal expectations, no one could have predicted the impact it would have. Her choice to befriend and connect with a homeless girl didn't just break protocol, it quietly questioned centuries of royal tradition. Yet, it was Kate Middleton's heartfelt and unexpected response that truly caught everyone off guard. The day had begun like any other routine school trip. Organized by the junior years program at Thomas's Battersea, Charlotte's school, the visit was to a small community shelter tucked away behind the busy streets of London. The building was modest and weathered, with peeling paint and a heavy old door that creaked loudly. The children arrived bundled in coats, chatting casually and walking with little attention to their surroundings. All except for Charlotte. Even at just 8 years old, Princess Charlotte stood out for her calm presence and quiet attentiveness. Her teachers often admired the way she carried herself. But on this particular day, something unique happened. As the children were guided through a basic dining hall and into a room lined with donated books and toys, Charlotte noticed a girl sitting alone in the corner, partially hidden by the doorway. The girl had tangled hair and held a book far too big for her lap. She clearly didn't belong to their school group. Her coat was thin and much too big, her hands red from the cold. But it was her eyes that caught Charlotte's attention. They didn't just see, they seemed to listen deeply. Without hesitation, Charlotte stepped away from her classmates and quietly crossed the room, choosing instinct over protocol. "Hi," she said softly. The girl blinked at her, caught between curiosity and shyness. She didn't respond right away. "I'm Charlotte." "What's your name?" the princess asked. After a brief pause, the girl answered, "Isa." They stood there quietly until Isa added, "I like this book. It's about a dog that gets lost and finds its way home." Charlotte smiled and replied, "I read that one, it made me cry." Isa gave a small nod. In that simple exchange, a connection was formed. For the next 15 minutes, the two girls sat side by side on the floor, heads bent close as they talked. Isa told Charlotte about her life, how she used to go to school nearby, but her mother had fallen ill and lost her job. They were forced to leave their home and were now staying in temporary housing. The shelter offered them warmth and food. Charlotte listened carefully, unfazed when Isa mentioned sleeping on a shared mattress. But what moved her wasn't sadness, it was respect. Isa spoke with quiet strength, never asking for pity. She talked about the meals her mother still tried to cook, the sketches she kept safely in her bag, and her dream of one day getting a puppy when life got better. Soon, a shelter staff member realized Charlotte had wandered off. A young assistant arrived looking anxious, but softened slightly when she saw the two girls together. With a gentle smile and a glance toward Isa, she guided Charlotte back to the rest of the group. Later that evening at Kensington Palace, over dinner, Princess Charlotte was unusually thoughtful. She slowly pushed peas around her plate, her silence noticeable. Kate looked over with concern and asked gently, "Is everything all right, darling?" Kate set down her fork and looked toward Charlotte, who had paused thoughtfully. "Mommy, there was a girl today at the shelter," Charlotte said. William leaned in, curiosity sparked. "What about her?" he asked. "She's my age," Charlotte explained. "Her name is Isla. She was really kind and smart, but she doesn't have a home." Kate blinked, taking in the words. "She's living at the shelter?" she asked. Charlotte nodded. "She told me. I don't think she meant to, but she's brave, Mommy. She didn't even cry about it." Kate and William exchanged a look, not one of concern, but a quiet realization. Their daughter had come face to face with something no royal upbringing or polished classroom could shield her from: genuine hardship. After a pause, Charlotte spoke again, her voice uncertain but hopeful. "Do you think she could come here? Just for tea? Or maybe to play in the garden?" Kate reached across the table and gently placed her hand over Charlotte's. "That's a very kind idea," she said softly. "Tell me more about Isla." Charlotte's expression brightened, and she launched into all the details she had learned about the girl. Kate listened closely, not just politely, but with real attention. She asked questions that weren't just meant to humor her child, but to understand, to learn. Questions that hinted at something more than a casual interest. That night, long after Charlotte had gone to bed, Kate stood at the sitting room window, gazing out over the quiet palace gardens. Over the years, she had heard countless stories of struggle and hardship in her official role. But this felt different. It had come to her not through headlines or briefings, but through Charlotte, innocent, honest, and deeply moved. "She really wants to help," Kate said quietly to William, who had joined her by the window. "And what do you think?" he asked. Kate turned to him, her eyes soft and thoughtful. "I think we need to meet this little girl." That single decision quietly set into motion a chain of events far beyond what anyone expected. It all began when Princess Charlotte brought home a story from the shelter, one that would soon touch hearts beyond the palace gates. And Kate Middleton's response would leave people speechless. The next morning, Charlotte woke earlier than usual for a Saturday. Wrapped in her robe and padding downstairs in socks, she held a sheet of lined notebook paper tightly in her hand. Kate, sipping her tea, raised an eyebrow in surprise. "You're up already?" Charlotte sat beside her and gently slid the note across the table. It was a letter, simple, slightly misspelled, but written with deep sincerity. It read, "Dear Isla, I liked talking to you. I told Mommy about you. Would you like to come for tea? We have dogs. Your friend, Charlotte." Kate read the letter twice, feeling an unexpected warmth rise in her chest. There was something so pure about it, no planning, no public image, just a child's heartfelt wish to comfort another. "I think," Kate said with a quiet smile, "this is a beautiful letter." Charlotte's face lit up with hope. "Can we give it to her today?" she asked eagerly. Kate hesitated, then nodded. "Let me make a few phone calls." That afternoon, after reaching out to the shelter director and arranging a discreet security check, Kate and Charlotte arrived at the community center. Their appearance was unannounced, and though surprised, the staff quickly gathered themselves and brought them to a private room. Isla and her mother, Amanda, were already waiting. Amanda looked anxious, her exhaustion visible in the weariness of her expression, the kind of fatigue life etches into someone who's faced constant uphill battles. Kate approached her with warmth and dignity, her presence easing the tension in the room. "I'm Catherine," she said with a gentle smile. "It's lovely to meet you both." Amanda rose quickly, still a little uncertain, but comforted by Kate's calm, sincere demeanor. "There's no need for that, Your Royal Highness," Amanda said, but Kate only smiled. Charlotte had already told her about Isla. The little girl had clearly left a strong impression. While the children chatted quietly nearby, Kate gently turned to Amanda and asked about their current situation. Amanda answered calmly, without exaggeration. Her voice held a quiet strength. She explained that she had been a librarian before government funding cuts took her job. When illness forced her to miss too many shifts, she was let go. Bills stacked up, rent fell behind, and eventually, they ran out of options. "We're on a list for housing," Amanda said plainly. "We're managing." Kate listened carefully, nodding as she took it all in. After a moment, she spoke, her voice low and sincere. "I'd like to help." Amanda looked at her in disbelief, caught off guard. "We didn't expect," she began. Kate gently interrupted. "I know. But sometimes, help should come before expectations." Just before leaving, Kate reached out and held Isla's hand. "We'd love to have you over sometime, if your mom agrees." Isla turned to look at Amanda, who nodded with tears forming in her eyes. Later that evening, back at Kensington Palace, Charlotte was bursting with excitement, practically skipping down the hallways. "Yes, Mommy," she said, glowing. "She's coming for tea." Kate watched her daughter disappear into her room and let out a quiet breath. She had already discussed it with William. They both agreed that this needed to be handled gently, with no media coverage, no photographs, no headlines. Just simple kindness. Just one family helping another. Still, neither of them could have predicted the ripple effect this one decision would have. While royal children do form friendships outside palace walls, through school, sports, or shared causes, inviting someone into the palace is another matter entirely. The royal world is one built on tradition, protocol, and quiet but undeniable exclusivity. Everything is controlled and measured. Few outsiders ever pass through the gates of Kensington or Windsor, unless they are dignitaries, relatives, or carefully vetted guests. William and Harry both had friendships with classmates and army comrades, but their personal lives were always guarded. The idea of a friend from a less privileged background visiting their private quarters was nearly unheard of, not due to cruelty, but because of centuries of deeply rooted expectations. So when Princess Charlotte asked to invite Isla, a homeless girl, into the palace for tea, it wasn't just an innocent gesture. It became a quiet rebellion. An unspoken challenge to the old rules of class and privilege. And when Kate said yes, it wasn't a small choice, it was a significant shift. 2 weeks later, under a grey, rainy sky, Isla arrived at Kensington Palace. She wore a second-hand dress, carefully pressed by her mother, and shoes a size too big, borrowed from a community centre's donation bin. But despite it all, she stood tall with a quiet grace. Her mother had told her to mind her manners, to be thankful, and most of all, to simply be herself. At the palace entrance, Charlotte greeted her warmly, no bows, no royal protocol. Just a hug between friends. From a distance, Kate watched with a soft smile and gave Amanda a warm nod. Everyone in the palace had been informed, no photographs, no documentation. This wasn't a royal engagement. It was just a visit. A simple playdate. The girls spent the afternoon running through the royal gardens, playing hide-and-seek with the family dog, Lupo. They made daisy chains, invented their own games, and laughed until they were breathless. Kate served their snacks herself, not a nanny or a butler, just a mother sharing the moment. Later that evening, after Isla had gone home, Charlotte curled up next to Kate on the couch, her legs tucked beneath her. She didn't want to leave, she whispered. Kate put her arm around her daughter. I know, she replied softly. But we'll see her again. The palace's attempt to keep the visit under wraps quickly unraveled. A junior staff member, unaware of the sensitivity surrounding the situation, casually mentioned it at a private dinner. Within days, the tabloids picked up on the rumor, sparking widespread speculation. Who was the girl? Why was she at the palace? Was this a publicity stunt? The palace's communication team went into damage control mode. Advisors suggested Kate distance the family from the story and let it quietly disappear. One senior aide warned, it's sweet, but it's risky. But Kate refused to retreat. We don't hide kindness, she said. Determined to take control of the narrative, she chose to go public on her own terms. 2 days later, the Royal Foundation released an official statement. The Princess of Wales believes every child deserves dignity, safety, and the chance to thrive. We are proud that Princess Charlotte responded to another child's circumstances with compassion and empathy. We will continue to support community partnerships that uplift families facing hardship. The public response was swift and heartwarming. Social media lit up with messages of praise. Parents shared how their own children were inspired by Charlotte's gesture. Behind the scenes, Kate went a step further. She coordinated with the Royal Foundation's Children and Families Initiative to arrange meaningful help for Isla and her family. A scholarship was secured through a partner school. An anonymous donor stepped forward to provide temporary housing in a peaceful area of West London. It wasn't lavish, but it was safe, warm, and secure. The next time Isla visited the palace, she didn't come as a guest, she came as a friend. Charlotte ran to greet her with joy, pulling her straight to the art room prepared especially for the occasion. The two girls painted, made necklaces, and laughed together as they drew funny portraits of the palace staff. That afternoon, Kate stood in the doorway watching them, one girl a royal, the other not, but both equal in their happiness and spirit. She didn't interrupt, didn't pose for photographs. She just stood there smiling, content in the knowledge that what was happening wasn't about appearances, it was real. When Charlotte brought home her homeless friend, Kate's response wasn't crafted for optics, it was a genuine act of compassion. And from that quiet moment, meaningful change began to unfold. Kensington Palace's Spring Charity Garden event had always been a refined gathering attended by educators, youth leaders, and donors. It was a time to honor community initiatives backed by the royal family. But this year's event had special significance. It marked Isla's first public appearance beside Princess Charlotte. There were no announcements, no photographers lining up. Still, when the two girls walked out hand in hand, Charlotte dressed in a soft lavender outfit, the garden fell silent with curiosity. Not because Isla was someone famous, but because the moment felt so naturally right. Charlotte introduced Isla to the guests as though she had always belonged. Not as someone in need, but as a friend. A senior youth advocate, present that day, later recalled, "I've attended many events like this, but today felt different." Charlotte wasn't trying to impress anyone. She was simply herself. And that little girl with her, she glowed. Their friendship was genuine. By mid-afternoon, the garden buzzed with conversation, not about royalty or lineage, but about inclusion. About how powerful it was to see a royal child treat someone from a completely different life as an equal. Kate remained in the background, standing beside Amanda, Isla's mother. They didn't seek attention. That was never the goal. Amanda, her eyes full of emotion, turned to Kate and softly said, "She's happy." Kate responded with a quiet, confident nod, "She deserves to be." Time passed, but the effects of that moment lingered. Isla enrolled in one of London's top schools on a full scholarship. Her mother found part-time work through a discreet referral and eventually moved into a permanent home. There were no headlines, just the quiet return of stability. Charlotte and Isla continued to spend time together on Saturdays. Sometimes at the palace, sometimes at Isla's new apartment. No cameras, no speeches, just two girls enjoying a friendship born of choice, not circumstance. Kate never spoke publicly about it again. She didn't have to. Those who witnessed it would never forget. And those who heard the story would carry it with them, proof that true empathy can shine brighter than any crown. Charlotte's simple gesture became a spark for real change. It showed that kindness knows no status. And Kate's decision to embrace that friendship, even when protocol advised against it, reflected the kind of leadership that truly moves people. What would you do if your child brought home a friend who challenged everything you thought you knew? Don't forget to subscribe for more heartfelt royal stories that remind us of what truly matters. Thank you for watching. We'll see you in the next one.